to meet you too. So I am really, really honored to be talking with you about this short documentary, More Than Santa Baby. So, Tamar, I'm wondering, I know that you said you wanted to make this because of your dad and to show sort of the legacy of your dad and also other songs that he wrote and that whole journey and his tenacity. And I'm wondering, what was your first process? Like, did you first approach your dad and say you were making this, or how did that come about?
Well, the way I came about, like got the whole idea and got it all in motion was that I've always managed his music, his catalog. I managed Santa Baby, I handled the licensing, and he kept a vast amount of material from his whole career. VHS tapes, DVDs, like almost thousands of recordings, newspaper articles, sheet music, memorabilia, all from the 40s on. And I was organizing it and just cataloging it and trying to put it in some kind of order, scanning things. I had a great shelf of everything and notebooks. And I had a light bulb one day. I said, this is a documentary film. This is a story that needs to be told, and film is the vehicle. Before that, I was planning on doing a production of one of his musicals that I love. And I did that production many years ago, and I wanted to get back to it. And then I had this idea about the film, and I thought this is what has to be done. So that was the beginning. After that, I called several friends who were in the film industry in different areas, and I asked questions, and I sort of just developed because this was largely archival, not entirely. There was new filming of interviews in some locations, but largely archival. I was able to put a lot of it together at my desk, and I set up at home in my dining room because my office at home wasn't big enough. So I took over the dining room, spread out with 3 different screens and scanners and all of that, digitized everything, wrote an outline of the film the way I saw it, which was musical chapters of his life.
Yeah.
The whole first part is all about his musical development and continues on in different musical eras of his life. And once I did that, everything I had archived and digitized, I said, well, this content belongs in this part of his life. This belongs in high school. This belongs in the Army. This was Columbia University in 1949 and 1950. This was the Brill Building era. So that's sort of the beginning and how I proceeded.
It's so incredible. What a catalog. And I think a lot of people don't, that are just like casual listeners to music don't really necessarily realize all that goes into songwriting and that part of music. They just see the person performing the song. And your dad, Philip Springer, was just so prolific and also had so many amazing partnerships. And I'm wondering, as far as that goes with those different partnerships, was there one, probably hard for you to answer, but was there one maybe that, I don't know, when you were doing this research, felt more impactful than the others or more personal?
Okay, well, first of all, he did write with the most iconic lyric writers of the time. And most of those lyric writers went on to write huge songs and huge Broadway shows. And they were all important, very important figures in his life, both professionally and personally. The one person that I would talk about answering this question is E.Y. Yip Harburg, who wrote the lyrics to The Wizard of Oz. He was not only my father's collaborator, he was a lifelong friend. They were friends for 30 years or more before they actually started their songwriting collaboration. My father wrote with Yip during the last 10 years of Yip's life. And Yip was like my grandfather. He would tell me bedtime stories. And if you can imagine, the writer of Wizard of Oz just made up the most incredible bedtime stories when I was a kid. And I think that, he stands out most answering that question because he was such a close personal friend to my dad and the family, and really was the only grandfather figure I had. And about as iconic as you can get is the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And I had a feeling it might be Yip because of the way you spoke about him in the documentary. And I'm wondering because going to that grandfather part, I know your dad had a strained relationship with his own dad who didn't support his career, especially because he was focusing on jazz music and he wanted him to do classical. So, do you think that relationship with Yip, I know that wasn't like his father, but do you think there was any kind of healing in that? Or did your dad ever come to a point where he kind of let go of that feeling of, that he didn't like that he was disappointing his father, so to speak?
My dad told me, so he's 99 now. He's very mentally fit, which is amazing and awesome. And he told me in his like around 80 years old or in his early 80s, all of a sudden he realized that he was a great songwriter and he was a great composer. And I don't know exactly, I think he told me that he was listening to some music and he said, that is a great composer. And then he realized he was listening to his own composition.
Wow.
So he he came to that conclusion, but it took him, his whole life.
Yeah.
And it is, a sad and unfortunate part of his life history that his father didn't believe in pop music or jazz. And my dad had to fight that his whole life. And I know that it was definitely one of the reasons why I think he had insecurities, and those insecurities made him behave in a certain way. And that behavior, I'm sure, led to some disconnected relationships that harmed his career. So I do think that there was a connection between that and what I would call lack of recognition for some of his amazing, beautiful music along the way. So yeah, it was very impactful in his life, and I think that father son piece will connect to hopefully many people, because certainly many people can relate to the theme of a parent not approving and how that impacts your life.
Yeah, and even having that distance of a parent also, can also, yeah, and even with father daughters, I think you
Absolutely,
can relate to that too. Yeah.
parent
And
child.
yeah, and then I'm wondering, because he had that experience, was he then, it sounds like he was like much different than that with you and with his kids. Was he like he was exposing you to all this incredible music? So was he encouraging you to pursue anything artistic or just pursue your dreams?
Yeah, he actually did. He was very, very encouraging. And I'm not a musician now. I did play three instruments as a kid, but I did danced for a little while. And I spent a year in Israel during college, and I choreographed a musical there at the university.
Wow.
And I told him about it, and I showed him the videotape. It was actually Joseph and his amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Oh,
I choreographed the whole musical. And he said, Tip, that's his nickname for me. He said, you can come to New York. You can, work as a choreographer. Like, it was so out of the blue, because it was just it was just something I did. I wasn't aspiring to be a choreographer. I was just the only person with any sort of dance background, and they needed somebody. And I don't even know how I did it. I just did it. It was a long time ago. I was 21, I think. But he was so encouraging of that, and that stayed in my mind because that came out of nowhere. Anyway, I went on to work in the field of psychology for many years, and I ended up being much more the producer manager type. I've managed Santa Baby and the catalog and anything business wise that comes up with his music for years. And that, I think, that sort of suits me.
yeah, but that's so wonderful because that just would give you that impetus that whatever you're going to pursue, you're
Yes.
going to have that support there.
Yeah, he definitely did that.
Yeah. And I'm wondering when you are cataloging everything and you're going through everything, when you're putting everything together, was there a piece of music maybe that you hadn't heard before or that you gained a new appreciation for?
There were several songs that I never knew that he wrote. He had I'm going to say hundreds, it might have been thousands, I don't know, of CDs, because he started recording his own music at a certain point in his career. He just said, I'm going to record all of this, and had all kinds of different shows and recordings and different people and so forth. So I went through so many of those, looking for the content of the film, looking for the ones I wanted to use. And of course, I had many songs in mind, but I came across a lot of songs I didn't know, a lot. Um, So I couldn't really fit everything in, and I wanted to keep it as short. I wanted to keep it under 40 minutes. I felt like he's not that famous and less is more. And so, I probably could have a 2 hour, at least a 2 hour documentary if I wanted to include different selections and stories. But yes is the answer. I discovered a lot that I didn't know.
Yeah, I bet that must be so incredible, though, I'm guessing you gained an even deeper love and admiration for your dad, too.
I really did, and I found recordings by some very notable artists of that era, the 40s, 50s, 60s, the golden era, things I didn't even know, like Frankie Avalon recorded a song of his. He had a song, and that song is Welcome Home Baby, which was a big hit in the UK. But Anita Bryant recorded it. Frankie Avalon, the Brooks Brothers was the hit, and maybe others. Like, I didn't know that that song had so many recordings, or Frankie, who was a big star back then. So there are several examples of that, people of name recognition who recorded his music that I didn't even know about.
Wow. Yeah. And then the ones that you did, like I'm sure with the Elvis recording, you knew that one, and
Yes.
Frank Sinatra, and so many recognizable names, so many incredible, talented people as well.
Yes.
And you could tell with the people you were talking to how much respect and admiration people in the industry have for him. So, which was beautiful to see, because I really do think people need to appreciate songwriters more than they do. So I thought that was really nice to see that as well. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. I mean, it makes you an angel of the film because, just somebody had said earlier that I spoke with that, you can have a bunch of songwriters in the room, but really you only know the people that sing them. And
Yeah.
there are some beautiful stories of the songwriters. And so, obviously I felt that this story was important to tell.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a beautiful story, and also just the perseverance of going through all those changes in the industry, with having being the songwriters being embraced, and the Brillo and the New York, and then rock and roll coming in, and then ending up having to move to Los Angeles and do the TV and film. And what was that like for you as a child? Like growing up and watching that and all those different changes, what was your view on that, if you can speak to that a little bit?
Sure. Well, we moved from New York to California when I was 2 years old.
Oh,
So, it really, even though I feel a connection with New York, and when I'm here, which I am right now, I feel like I'm home. I'm a New Yorker. I feel that. However, I did grow up in Los Angeles, so that's kind of what I knew. And I sort of remember the film and TV era. Um, I remember Joan Coleman, who was his high school sweetheart. She's in the earlier part of the film. Her husband was Hank Coleman, big producer at CBS who produced The Love Boat. And Hank, I think, got my dad a lot of these TV and movie jobs. So I sort of remember Hank and Joan being around, and UCL. There was that UCLA era, which I was very much aware of. The electronic era was kind of a big part of my life because his electronic music studio was in the downstairs area of our home in Pacific Palisades. Unfortunately, it burned down in January, but that was my
oh,
childhood home, my parents' home. Yeah, it's
I'm
hard.
so sorry.
Thank you. It's hard not to mention it when I'm talking about it, but I don't want to be a downer, but that did happen. But in that house, there was a big downstairs unit, and that was his laboratory. So there were constantly people in and out for the music phase, the electronic music phase. And Yip Harburg actually brought James Taylor over once.
Oh,
And I was about 12 years old, and I was on my driveway, which was the way that playing with my dog, which was the way you got into the electronic laboratory. And Yip brought James Taylor over to see the lab. So Yip comes in, hey, Tamar, this is James Taylor. I said, oh, hi. I mean, I was only 12 years old, but obviously a very, stark and wonderful memory. But things like that happened. And, I remember that. And of course, I remember a lot of the frustrations, a lot of the difficult parts of his career where the songwriting really had dried up and the Brill building didn't exist anymore. And my dad was kind of trying to figure out what to do. That was, strongly in my memory. And therefore, making this film was very cathartic because even though I did sort of have to relive that, we also get to, you know, his decade in his 90s, which brought a lot of full circle recognition moments, which you've seen. I don't want to do too many
Yeah.
spoilers. Yeah, so just, my whole life was really very largely impacted by his music, his career. He says that he knew the Brill Building would shape his life, and I feel like it kind of shaped my life too, because it shaped his. So all of the ups and downs were a big part of my life.
Yeah, and it is amazing because the Brill Building, which I had never heard of that ever before this, and I consider myself like a music is my first love as far as art forms go. And so I was like, I can't believe I don't know about this. And even though that was part of you, you said, but did you learn more about that, like, artists that were there and writers and stuff?
Um, I did through conversations with my dad, and I got some really cute anecdotes when I asked him to tell me a story about a certain song or a certain collaborator. So I did learn some more details about that time period. There was also footage that I went through. There's footage of him later in his life at the Brill Building reminiscing, and there's a little bit of that in the film, but of course that video was much longer. So I got to visually see him remembering that time period in his life. And, all of that was, just kind of life. It was very, there was pain and there was beauty in it too. I just walked by
Yeah.
the Brill Building this morning. I always
Oh,
do when
really?
I'm in New York City, always. Yeah,
Yeah, it must hold such a special spot for you now, especially even more so than before.
it does. It
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you look at the Instagram page at Santa Baby Composer, I just recently posted a photo that I created, which has 3 decades of the corner of 49th and Broadway, where the Brill Building was. And it was the Turf Restaurant in the 1950s, my dad's era. And then it was the Colony Record Store. And today it's CVS, that corner. And just to the right of that corner, when you're facing the river, is the golden coat of arms of the Brill Building that they'll never change. But that entryway, that's what he walked through every day. It's still
Mm.
there.
It's great that they didn't get rid of that part, that'll
Yeah,
never change.
I
That
don't think
makes it
so.
really special.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And also, if you look high up on the building, you'll see the two Brill brothers are up there too. There's golden like
Oh,
statuettes of their heads up there.
oh, wow.
People may
Wow.
miss that, but that's also very beautiful to capture that.
Wow. Yeah. Just amazing. The history and the everlasting power of music. Music just lasts forever, which I mean, your dad won a Webby Award in 2024 for performing Moonlight Sonata. I mean, talk about lasting music for your birthday. How did that feel for you personally to know that that led to an award and that performance?
It was really an amazing event, amazing occurrence, totally unexpected. I had been posting birthday videos, mine and his. I'd have him play something special, for a long time. There's nothing new about that. But because it was the Moonlight Sonata and it was really sort of perfection, the first movement, it was really incredible. I mean, I can't say I'd never seen my dad play like that. He played like that every single day, but I'd never captured it like that. And I shared it with the Beethoven Facebook page, about 10,000 members, maybe, not that many. I mean, not, some pages have hundreds of
Yeah.
thousands. And from that one share, it went viral worldwide. Also won a few World Classical Music Awards in addition to the Webby. And it brought so much attention, inquiries from press all over the world, Croatia. I have a beautiful friend in Tbilisi, Georgia, as a result of that video, a journalist. She's in the film for a few brief moments. That video sparked that friendship and collaboration with her. She supports this film and has done beautiful articles about my dad, beautiful writer named Nina and Sipuria. So it just brought incredible things. And when that happened, the third act of the film came to my mind. I knew what it was going to be about, not just about the the Webby and the viral video, but that decade of his life and all the things that happened. So that was an incredible gift for for a million of reasons.
Yeah, I bet. And that whole last part is so beautiful. I don't want to give away a lot of it, but it's just a beautiful last shot of the of this documentary too, I want to say.
Yeah.
Had me near tears. And I mean that as
Good.
a
I'm
utmost
glad to hear it.
yeah.
Yes.
So, well, thank you so much, Tamar. It was so great talking with you, and I wish you the best of luck with this. And your father is amazing. So, thank you for making this documentary too.
Thank you so much.